Ethan Carter was not special. That was the truth he had been avoiding for years. At 32, he lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the walls were thin, the lights flickered, and ambition quietly went to die. Every morning the alarm rang at 6 a.m., and every morning he stared at the ceiling, wondering how his life had become a series of unfinished dreams. He once believed he was meant for more. In college, Ethan had ideas, big ones. He talked about building something meaningful, about creating a life that mattered. Professors said he was smart but inconsistent. Friends said he had potential but lacked discipline. Employers said he was capable but not ready. And life? Life said nothing at all. It just kept moving forward without him. His job was safe, predictable, and soul-crushing. Customer complaints, endless emails, supervisors who never looked him in the eye. He wasn't miserable enough to quit, but he wasn't alive enough to stay. The worst part wasn't failure. It was watching others move on. People he once stood beside were now ahead of him. Some started businesses. Some climbed corporate ladders. Some failed and tried again and again. Ethan stayed still, paralyzed by fear disguised as being realistic. He told himself stories. I'll start next year. I just need the right moment. I'm not ready yet. Years passed. Then one night everything cracked. It happened on a rainy Thursday. Ethan had worked late, missed dinner, and lost a promotion he thought he deserved. The email was short, polite, and final. After careful consideration, we've decided to move forward with another candidate. Another candidate, always another candidate. He walked home soaked, shoulders heavy, mind loud. When he reached his apartment, he didn't turn on the lights. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, staring into nothing. For the first time in years, he didn't distract himself. No phone, no music, no excuses, just silence. And in that silence, a question appeared, quiet but ruthless. What if this is all your life will ever be? His chest tightened. He imagined himself 10 years older, still waking up tired, still complaining, still waiting. The image terrified him more than failure ever had. Tears came, not dramatic, not loud, just heavy. That night, Ethan admitted something he had never said out loud. I am afraid. Afraid of failing, afraid of being judged, afraid of starting and not finishing, afraid of discovering that maybe he wasn't enough. But something strange happened. Instead of crushing him, the truth freed him. For the first time, he stopped pretending to be confident. He stopped lying to himself about someday. He faced the raw, uncomfortable reality of who he was and where he stood. And in that moment, another thought followed. If I'm already disappointed in myself, what do I really have left to lose? That question changed everything. Ethan didn't suddenly feel motivated. He didn't feel powerful. He didn't feel unstoppable. He felt honest. And honesty became the foundation. The next morning, he woke up before the alarm. Not because he was inspired, but because he was tired of running from his own reflection. He took a notebook and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. I will become unstoppable, not because it's easy, but because staying the same hurts more. He didn't know how. He didn't know when. He didn't know what unstoppable even meant yet. But for the first time in his life, he made a decision without waiting for permission. That day, he did one small thing differently, then another the next day, and another. No announcements, no social media posts, no promises to anyone, just quiet progress. Because becoming unstoppable doesn't start with confidence. It starts with a breaking point. And Ethan had finally reached his. The first week felt powerful. Ethan woke up early. He wrote his goals down. He felt different, lighter, clearer. But by the second week, the feeling faded. Motivation, he learned, was unreliable. It showed up loud and confident, then disappeared without warning. Discipline, on the other hand, was quiet, uncomfortable, and demanded payment every single day. No one warned him about that part. There were mornings when the alarm rang and every excuse lined up perfectly. You worked late. You deserve rest. Skipping one day won't matter. And that was the real enemy. Not failure, not lack of talent, not even fear. Comfort. Comfort whispered lies that sounded reasonable. Ethan realized something most people never do. You don't lose your dreams in one dramatic moment. You lose them in small negotiations with yourself. So he stopped negotiating. He made a rule, simple, brutal, non-negotiable. No matter how I feel, I show up. Not to be perfect. Not to win. Just to show up. Some days. Showing up meant reading 10 pages when his mind wanted to quit after 2. Some days. It meant working on a skill after a full workday when his body begged for the couch. Some days it meant doing the bare minimum, but doing it anyway. Progress was slow, painfully slow. Weeks passed and there were no visible results. No praise, no validation. No moment where life said, "Good job, keep going." In fact, life tested him harder. Friends noticed he was changing, but not in a supportive way. "You're overthinking. Why are you stressing so much? Relax, life isn't that serious." They meant well, but comfort doesn't understand growth. Ethan started spending more time alone, not because he wanted to, but because the path he chose required silence, focus, distance. Loneliness became part of the process, and that scared him. There were nights when doubt crept in quietly. What if this is pointless? What if you're wasting time? What if you fail anyway? Those thoughts were louder in the dark. But instead of fighting them, Ethan listened. And then he asked a better question. What happens if I quit again? He knew the answer. He had lived it. Quitting didn't bring peace. It brought regret. So he kept going. Not with passion, went with principle. He started tracking his habits. Not outcomes, habits. Did I show up today? Did I keep my word to myself? Did I move forward even one step? Slowly, something unexpected happened. His self-respect returned. Not confidence, not arrogance. Self-respect. The quiet knowledge that he could trust himself. That when he said he would do something, he did it. That changed how he walked, how he spoke, how he looked at challenges. Discipline wasn't making him successful yet, but it was making him dangerous. Because a person who can control himself doesn't need motivation. He doesn't wait for the perfect moment. He doesn't need approval. He moves. Months passed. Ethan failed more times than he could count. Projects didn't work. Plans collapsed. Some days felt like going backward. But something had shifted permanently. Failure no longer defined him. Quitting did. And he refused to quit. One night, exhausted and frustrated, Ethan looked at his notebook, the same one he had written in on his breaking point. On the first page was the sentence, "I will become unstoppable, not because it's easy, but because staying the same hurts more." He smiled. Because now he understood something deeper. Becoming unstoppable wasn't about intensity. It was about endurance. It was about doing what most people won't, for longer than most people can, without applause. Discipline didn't make life easier. It made Ethan stronger. And strength, he was learning, compounds quietly. The world still hadn't noticed him. But he noticed himself, and that was enough to keep going. Because the discipline phase doesn't feel heroic. It feels lonely, boring, repetitive. But it is where unstoppable people are built.